Hi guys, I wasn't planning on making a video, but I woke up this morning to my Twitter feed being all blown up with images and videos from last night's riots around the US. Also, there were some messages people are being more interested about the topic of brainwashing with all different technologies and whatnot. So I'm going to share my 2 cents with you just because I have studied the brain for many years in my life while I was working in tech. I have also dedicated all of my dissertation, I should say, towards brainwaves. But I do want to position it such that it also corresponds to what's happening in our lives today. So here's the deal. Depending on how you define brainwashing, if you define it such that you would be a different person, you would have different ideology, you would have different thoughts if you were born in another time or in another place than now, that what you are now, then that would be a definition of brainwashing, because that would mean that you would not be the person who you are today if you were, for example, living in a different time or in a different place. Now, based on that definition, you are already brainwashed. And here's why. Studying brainwaves for as long as I remember, and I've also worked in tech, by the way, and dedicated my dissertation, my thesis, bringing in the study of brainwaves with information science. The way in which the brain works, traditionally speaking, we are talking about how the physical brain works. That is your traditional neuroscience that talks about, for example, your amygdala being the center of fear, your limbic system, they also call it the reptile part of the brain. All that aside, there is also a way in which your brain functions, and that is through the electromagnetic waves. Now, those electromagnetic waves, or electrical signals, if you will, the way in which we, for example, can measure EEG and brain waves. Those are malleable. They are shapeable. They shape based on your beliefs and ideas. The way they shape is that the way they vibrate, for example, at the frequency and at the wavelength level, and that is how we can measure them with EEGs. And so setting aside the traditional way in which we look at the brain, which, by the way, I'm evolving from, and just looking at the frequencies of your brain, but also of your every single cell in your body, they are flexible and they are malleable and they change based on what you feed it. And also in the field of cognitive psychology, you learn that there are a lot of ways in which the minds can be manipulated, they can be changed, and if you want to call it brainwashed. It doesn't really matter, because it does shape the way in which we react, we live, we talk, we carry ourselves. And that is what you can also see in these protests and in these sort of riots. And you can call it whatever you want, by the way. I'm not taking any stance on it, but just looking at it from the psychology point of view and from the brain frequency point of view, you can see that people choose to react differently, and that is just based on their ideology. So now the question is whether you can be brainwashed with the new technology or not. If you believe that you are already brainwashed, based on that definition, by the way, you can also call it, this is my upbringing, or you can call it whatever you want. My point is that I think we should be less scared about what the so-called future technology, whether they can read our minds or not, and whether they can brainwash or not, because we are already there. And that had nothing to do with what we thought it was an imminent threat from the outside. It has already been happening. So my point is that our question should be, okay, now that I know, what should I do about it? You don't have to like the way I look. You don't have to like the way I sound. You don't have to like my accent. Hell, you don't even have to like the country I was born in, which a lot of people don't. And by the way, for me, countries really doesn't matter, because to me, it just means that your mother happened to be in that part of Earth and gave birth to you, and as a result, you are part of that country. So it really, to me, it's a weird way of categorizing, because I believe in humanity. I believe in frequency. So for me, that is the main part. So you don't have to like any of that, but I do want you to believe in what I'm saying, because it is part of you. It is part of your anatomy. It is part of your energy. It is part of your frequency. It is a part of the personality that you are, that you don't see, and that is what shapes you. All of your frequencies shape you. And so you can call it brainwashed, or they're going to read your mind with all these new technologies 5-10 years from now, or maybe even now. That's fine. You can think of it that way. But I urge you to be open to the fact that you are already in a situation where you have most probably been brainwashed by the society. It might not have been as cool looking, like an artificial intelligence robot coming and brainwash you. It might have looked very normal to you, but the fact that you are carrying a buttload of ideology to such an extent that people are able to go out and kill other people, then that is a brainwash. If you never heard of Yuri Basmanov, I urge you to go and find it and watch some of his videos, where he talks about the way in which, for example, in Russia, they brainwashed people, and also how they are trying to infiltrate, and they have actually infiltrated other countries such as the US, and how long it actually took. And he really breaks it down into how many years it took. He mentions that it takes 15 years, and that is how they penetrate into schools and they teach kids, and then they use specific words, that some of the words that I've already talked about, NLP, if you're familiar with it. And so it is a lot about the things that we've already experienced, more than a threat that is going to come in the future. So what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that let's shift the focus away from a threat in the future and look at our lives right at this moment and see where we are at right now, and determine first and foremost, how much have I been brainwashed? Would I be a different person? Would I have a different ideology if I were not born into my family, or if I were in another country, or another time for that matter? And if your answers are yes, then that means that you have been, you can call it brainwashed, I call it influenced by the surroundings. And just being aware of that, just waking up to that fact, I think it's a huge win, because that is the shift in your frequencies that you needed. And that shift in your frequencies, much of it is thanks to starting with COVID and now escalating into riots. And I say thanks with quote unquote, just because obviously I'm not happy about that has brought to us. But I'm saying thanks, looking at it from a positive way, because it is shifting, and it's traumatic enough to shift a lot of our frequencies so that we start really questioning different things and different aspects of our lives. Some people call it for us to wake up to how we're living and who we are actually. So what to do about it? Because if you know me, I never like to just talk about problems. I also want to talk about solutions. And I think we need more of that. So if you're watching videos such as this material or others, I urge you to look for solutions. And I think one of the major first steps is for us to become and force ourselves to take the time and the energy to educate ourselves and to become aware of the way in which all of this are unfolding. I think that is a huge part of our humane justice and freedom. If that's the type of a freedom that nobody can take away from you. The way your brain works, the way your body works, the way your frequencies are set up, and the way you have the control to change them, nobody can take that away from you. No guns, no threats, no nothing. They can try, but at the end of the day, the control is within you. And the first step is to becoming aware and to educate yourself more and more about it. So my first step solution to anybody who's listening is to start educating yourself about how your brain works, how your brain frequencies work, how your body works, and also educate yourself about how this world is set up, what politicians are doing, what other banks are doing as we speak. There are numerous people that are speaking up. They are professionals, they are independent. And when I say independent, it means that they are not being paid, for example, by a certain institution to say something. They either fund themselves, or the people who fund them, they are not necessarily have a vicious agenda. They have a good agenda. So listen to them and open up. And you will soon start noticing a pattern, not only in the truth that they are bringing to you, but also reading the comments. You will notice that there are certain people who already are so programmed or brainwashed, whatever you want to call it, such that even when the truth is spoken and shown to them, they still don't believe. That is when you realize how deep this brainwash has been going on. And so there is the fear of the future technology to brainwash you and to read your mind and whatnot. Okay, fine, if you want to think about those things, great. But put also some of your attention into your current stance, current situation, current ideology, and question it and look at it and see, okay, how much of it is actually something that I need to work on, and how much of it is that I'm blaming others, how much is it that I'm taking responsibility. All of that needs to be taken into account, and it goes really, really deep. It goes way deeper than you would ever want it to go. It is a little bit like that Matrix moment, like red pill or the blue pill. I took the red pill as well, but it was not fun. So it's not fun, guys, but it is necessary. Sum up, I guess my main message is that the way in which we have built our lives and built our stance and build our thoughts towards anything and everything in life, that is what makes you. That is how your frequencies are made. I wish that before I leave this earth, I get to write this little book, little volume that I'm writing about frequencies, and I wish I have a chance to do it, because it'll explain how all these frequencies and brain frequencies and your body frequencies are made up and sort of programmed since you were born. But we'll see how that goes. So until then, I wish you all well, and I see you.